Hi everyone, welcome back, or welcome if you're new to the Paulina Perspective podcast. My name is Leslie. Paulina is my middle name, but I use it for these conversations because as it's rarely used, mental health is something that rarely gets considered, so this is my loophole coming to you with the intentions of healing and growing into our best selves together. I've actually been wanting to talk about self-love for a minute now, but I wanted to wait till a moment where I felt most connected to myself in terms of how I've been and all, because I like coming into these conversations having it practiced for myself. So jumping straight into this, we're going to get into 4 spectrums of self-love, being acceptance and growth, indulgence and discipline, self-focus and connection, and finally, compassion and accountability. When you open that door to becoming your best self, acceptance looks like embracing who you are, flaws and all, without needing a change. For instance, accepting everything about you up until this moment that's happened, whether it be negative or positive. Why negative or positive? Because in the end, if you haven't gotten over your past decisions or regrets, how can you truly look into your future and say you're investing in yourself? And I know how annoying it might be to essentially hear it's this easy, but it's not that the work you have to put in is easy. It should just be easy for you to stand up for yourself and focus on your own emotions and notice how they're negatively impacting you. Healthy self-love requires us to balance the contentment we have within ourselves and that desire to evolve. Meaning, you might not think that much needs to change right now, or you like the position you're in, but that doesn't mean you can't incorporate some type of goal setting or change for a better mentality, better focus, and for a better you. And yes, we all make mistakes throughout this whole process, but what's important is that we learn to walk forward and notice when it could happen again or when it is happening in order to prevent it from growing into those old bad habits. The majority of people also get stuck in the idea of wanting to change or needing to change to be lovable for themselves or for others to love them as well. And with the idea that wanting change means they don't accept themselves right now. But true self-love can hold both, accepting who you are right now and still wanting to grow. Which is why you have to accept yourself today for next week's version of you to have ease or feel better taking a slower breath. It really doesn't have to be as drastic as people think. You don't have to change your whole look to say you're wanting to change or you're in the process of changing yourself. Just start getting more fresh air than usual. A lot of people tend to think too much into these topics, including myself sometimes, when in reality, it just takes you to realize what you're saying and what you're doing to then start doing things differently as you begin to notice the patterns. For instance, telling yourself, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that to myself after diminishing yourself over a small mistake. And when you get into your own momentum, the tricky thing is then looking into indulgence and discipline together. Indulgence is giving yourself enough grace to rest, to treat yourself, or to say yes to some type of pleasure like shopping or taking a day off, because we're all human, and we shouldn't be continuously working without breaks. On the other hand, with discipline, you still continue to show yourself self-love, but paying attention to the boundaries you need to set, the promises you tell yourself, and doing those hard things even when you really don't feel like it because it benefits you long term. Why? Because both caring for your needs now and protecting your future self are acts of love. Sometimes self-love is about rest or pleasure. Other times it's about needing to do uncomfortable things, like taking a solo day, saving money, exercising, going to therapy, that benefit your future self. It's not all solvable with just taking a bath and getting a sweet treat after. Yes, you'll be happy. But at the same time, you have to realize that you're pushing your emotions away or shoving them down completely, which is only going to hurt you more later. And at some point, you have to decide when you've had enough in order for you to get out of a rut or to not see yourself in a hard place anymore. And this is a section most people find the most challenging, but that's because you need to get used to making these uncomfortable choices by exposing yourself to this new lifestyle that you crave. Hence why exposure therapy is very helpful as people begin to notice and tell themselves, oh yeah, I can do this, or I can get over this. Here, exposure therapy can lead us into how self-love involves balancing 2 essential dimensions, self-focus and connection. Self-focus means tuning into your needs, your wants, and your emotions, and allowing yourself to put your well-being first when necessary. It's about acknowledging that you can't pour from an empty cup. You need reflection, you need rest, and you need to care about showing up fully in your own life. At the same time, connection is just as important because part of loving yourself is cultivating healthy, supportive relationships and being part of a community. Hence why a lot of people today care about making their own village. Yes, solitude can recharge and ground you, And I completely understand if you feel like you're okay by being by yourself, but too much isolation can drain your spirit or your social battery, for instance, whenever you're interacting with someone or something else. We're humans. Humans are deeply social beings, maybe not as dependable as things used to be, but thriving requires both self-focus and meaningful connection. So remember that true self-love is not choosing one over the other, but learning how to hold both, caring for yourself while staying open to others and new experiences. And now the section, in my opinion, that people find hard to hear about or accept is compassion and accountability. I felt this was most important to keep last after hearing everything else, because forgiving yourself for mistakes, speaking kindly to yourself, practicing patience is compassion, which is a huge part in maintaining the peace and confidence you eventually will find. However, this is also where many forget accountability, which is holding yourself responsible for your actions, behaviors, and the impact they have not only on yourself, but on others as well. You can love yourself by being gentle and by expecting better from yourself. But self-love is not an excuse to ignore your flaws or hurt others because of them. It means forgiving yourself and holding yourself to your own values so that you become someone you would respect and would want in your life. And for a real world scenario, this can apply to how not everyone will fully understand what you're going through. Everyone deals with different circumstances, how they see it fit best for themselves. And I bring this up because it's a big thing to realize once you start opening up to new experiences and connections and learning to understand that you won't always get the outcome you expect from someone with a different mentality or holds a generic view, which is compassion and having the accountability to educate those around you to help support you and hold for future references. Wrapping this up, it takes time, it takes patience. It's definitely not an easy thing to accomplish overnight, but every small step you take forward means something. And every small step you take towards valuing yourself makes a difference. Self-love isn't about being perfect or thinking of yourself as perfect. As cliche as it is, no one is perfect. Practice small acts of self-care. Set healthy boundaries that allow yourself grace, because it is about being kinder to yourself in the midst of going through all the craziness in our everyday lives. And specifically to those seeking love in other places, like getting into a relationship, find that love within yourself first. Because when you start noticing yourself more and loving who you are, you open the door to healthy relationships, to deeper joy, and a stronger sense of peace, while also looking out for the other person who wants to love you. And remember that the goal should not be you in a physical place. It should be an eternal feeling of peace, clarity, and steadiness. Now, before I forget, just a quick note that this channel is now a mix of my podcast channel with my lifestyle vlog, so be on the lookout for both. Thank you for being here with me and taking some time for yourself as well, because when you really think about it, this is an act of self-care and self-love. Don't forget to subscribe, share with anyone who you think needs to hear this, leave a like for me down below, turn on post notifications so that you don't miss any new uploads, comment any topic suggestions or videos you would like to see more of. And I just found out about this an hour ago, but happy World Mental Health Day. I hope you all have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you all again soon.